this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Through the Mail Thursdays. I'm going to share with you some autographs today that I think I know what they are simply by the postmarks on the envelopes. And if you look at this envelope in particular, this one has a return address on it from Mr. Bill Virdon. And I have a couple other envelopes here with Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania return addresses on them. So, if I am correct, I know the Bill Virdon, is what it is because he put the return on there. I believe I have a couple other Pittsburgh Pirate returns in this Through the Mail Thursday. So, I'm only going to cover 3 of the autographs in this video because I have a little added bonus at the end with some of the other items that I've acquired in person for this very same team. So to not spoil the fun, I think I just bumped the camera there, sorry guys, we're still good. I'm going to start with the Bill Virdon simply because that's the one that I know for sure is him. I don't remember sending to anybody else in the Pittsburgh area except for 2 other people which were part of this Pirates team. So with that said, let me open up Bill here, and I try to be careful so I don't tear the return envelope, because I like to keep these somewhat intact if they put the return postage on there. So I opened it off camera so I could show you. I like to keep the envelope if it has the ball player's name and address on there. Just kind of a little keepsake or whatever for, future reference. But Mr. Virdon returned. It looks like 4 cards, and I'll talk about this card in a second. But Mr. Virdon was a manager, but he also was a pretty good ball player, including winning the 1955 Rookie of the Year. He won the Rookie of the Year. Ironically, this card shows him as a Pirate, but he actually won the Rookie of the Year award with the St. Louis Cardinals. For some reason, the Cardinals felt that Mr. Virdon wasn't in the long-term plans of their organization, and he was later traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates, where he really made a name for himself in 1956, says at the top of the card there, and he played from 56 to 68 with the Pirates. Now, most importantly, Mr. Virdon was part of the 1960 World Series Pittsburgh Pirates. If you remember from my very first Through the Mail Thursdays video, I mentioned that I tried to collect some of the 60 Pirates autographs. Joe Gibbon, the left-handed relief specialist, was the person featured in that video. Then if you go a few videos, I want to say one of the later episodes in the middle, I also had Dick Schofield Sr., who was also a part of that team. So the next 2 envelopes that I'm going to open, I believe, are also 1960 World Series teammates of Mr. Virdon. To talk about these cards right here, I came across these on eBay a couple weeks ago, and these are Pittsburgh Pirate playing cards. And after doing a little research, I found that basically every team has these type of cards. And knowing that a lot of the Pittsburgh Pirate players from the 60 team are still alive, I mean, obviously Roberto Clemente has passed away. We all know about his story, tragically losing him, during his playing days. But a lot of the players from the 1960 team are still living. And I thought, well, I'm going to buy that set and just see who's still alive out of that set and mail off to him, and Mr. Virdon was one of them. So I'll talk a little bit more about the hero decks a little bit later on in the video, but I just wanted to share with you. I think these cards are awesome, and this is the first one I got back. Hopefully I got another one in the envelope here waiting for me as well. But Bill Virdon, been in baseball for a very long time. I don't know if he still works for the Pirates, but I saw him one time outside of Busch Stadium in St. Louis when the Pirates were in town. He was just walking in to the stadium from the parking lot or whatever, and he was nice enough to stop and sign. And this has probably been 15 years ago. But Mr. Virdon's a very good through the mail signer. If you have an opportunity to, get a few out to him, he's got cards ranging from the 50s all the way through the 80s. These are basically newer cards. Well, we don't want to call them newer. They're about 30 years old, but because he was a manager, he has a lot of manager cards out there too from the early 80s. And this one this is a 1950s, 60s, Legends set baseball history series. They came out in 79, so that's not that new. And this is a Pacific Legends card, which those came out in 89, 90, and they're relatively cheap. You can find boxes of these cards for $10, give or take, if you find them in the right place. So, thank you, Mr. Virdon, for signing all four. I really appreciate it. Moving on to the next one. Let's see who we got here. Okay. So, this one just has a postmark from Pittsburgh. So I know it's from Pittsburgh, and I think I know who it is. One of two people. And, yes, okay. Now this one is also a member of the 1960 Pirates, and he was their shortstop, and that is former National League MVP for the 1960 Pirates, Dick Groat. There's a little baby powder still on this one. Whoopsie. Luckily it didn't affect the autograph, but there's a little baby powder up there by his head. Anyways, as you can see, there's another Hero Deck playing card out of that set. Very happy to get that back. This is another ironic thing. This card talks about his MVP of the National League, but it pictures him as a Cardinal. Mr. Groat played for the Cardinals after he was the MVP, but yet they made this card with him as a Cardinal, which doesn't make sense. Then, as you can see, he pretty much finished up his career, it looks like, with the Phillies as well. Let me take a quick gander at the back of this card. Yes, he went to the Cardinals after the 62 season with the Pirates. But I was incorrect. The Phillies were not his last team. He played one season in 1967 for the Giants. And I don't think I have a Giants card of him. So, I don't even know if one exists. Maybe somebody can, comment below. But I can't picture a Giants card with him. But Mr. Groat, again, the mainstay shortstop, great defensive wizard, pretty good with the bat. He was, the MVP of that season, which is pretty amazing when you had the likes of Roberto Clemente on your team. But I'm looking on the back of this card right here, and even though he won the MVP that season, the best season they say is 1963, which he didn't win the MVP, in which he batted .319. So, kind of ironic. He didn't win the MVP in his best season, according to that card. And he finished his career, with the Phillies. So, thank you, Mr. Groat. Again, another great addition to the 60 Pirates team collection that I'm putting together. And I am going to definitely enjoy having those in my collection. Alright, have one more here from the Pirates. It's postmarked from Pittsburgh. And when I show you this card, hopefully you signed it. When I show you this, you'll be like, oh man, that is awesome. And this is from Bob Friend, who was one of the pitchers on the Pirates team from that year. And he signed 3 of 3. And I'll start out with the single signed card right here. This is a very beautiful, similar to that set that Mr. Virdon signed out of, TCMA. Oops. But you might recognize this card from a previous video with Ernie Berlio. And I got Mr. Friend to sign the part of his card, and I think the next person I'm going to try on there is Stan Williams. So I might be sending that one back. Now, this card is probably one of the favorite additions to my collection. And this is the Buck Hill Aces card, which is already signed by Vernon Law and Elroy Face. Mr. Klein, who's on the end here, passed away many years ago. So this is, unless you find it signed by Klein already, this is going to be a pretty much impossible card to complete. I'm sure there might be a few of them floating out there that Mr. Klein signed before he died. But I was able to get Mr. Friend to finish it off for me. I sent to Mr. Vernon Law in the past with a small donation, and I actually got Elroy Face to sign this at a card show in the St. Louis area. So, again, this is some of the best players to get off that 1960 Pirates team. Mr. Law and Mr. Face are still alive as well. Very active through the mail signers. I believe Mr. Law may require a small donation for a signature now. Elroy Face may as well. I'm not sure. I got these signed years ago, so I can't tell you. Actually, I take that back. I got the Face signed a couple years ago at a card show, so I can't speak for his through the mail habits. But definitely a happy addition to my collection for the 60 Pirates. Now, since I only talked about 3 through the mail successes, I thought I'd share with you some of my nice items in my collection that I've acquired throughout the years of the 1960 Pirates. Now, we're going to wait on that, but one thing that I have that I occasionally get signed, and my father gave me this ball many years ago. My dad picked this up at a flea market for, dollars. I mean, like $3. And that was a ball signed by Bob Skinner. Well, as you can see, it's signed in Sharpie, and it's not the best autograph, yada yada. So I was looking at that one day in my collection. I said, you know what? I'm going to start making that a 1960 Pirates ball. Anytime I see somebody that played on that team, I'm going to ask them to sign it. So I saw Bill Virdon in person once, and I had him sign it for me. So I've added him to the ball. And at that same card show that I talked about, I also got Elroy Face to sign it. And this is a Chub Feeney ball. So that goes back quite a few years. It's not obviously a 1960 ball, but Chub Feeney it hasn't been the commissioner of the National League for quite some time. So that's one nice little extra thing in my collection that I like about the 60 Pirates. And another thing, I'll just put that up here for a second. Another thing that I came across was this. I'll just keep it in the album. 1960 Pirates team set. And this is, I believe, again from that TCMA set. And I've gotten most of the guys that are living out of the set to sign. The only living player is Bill Mazurowski, and he's not very active in signing, but I have Dick Groat's card signed here at the top, Bob Skinner in the middle, than Elroy Face, Bob Friend, and Vernon Law. And Vernon Law even inscribed World Series champs on this one. And I believe I, again, sent a small donation to him to get those signed. So, those 9 card sets, pretty cool. Came across that, not too, paid like $1 for the whole set. And knowing that a lot of those guys were alive, I turned around and sent them. And finally, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is the Hero Deck set that I mentioned. And I found the Pirates version on eBay for like $1.50 plus like $2 shipping. So for $3.50, I got this whole deck of cards. And knowing that I figured that most of the Pirates players would be in there, I bought the set. Let's move that ball out of the way. And it's got the likes of Barry Bonds, Andy Van Slyke, even Brian Giles, who's a more modern era, Drabek. This guy goes back to the 20s. Roy Wiz Kramer, Mike LaValliere, Bob Skinner, who I'll probably wind up sending that to, Rennie Stennett, Richie Hebner, who signs to the mail. I think Frank Thomas signs to the mail, and this is the original Frank Thomas, as he refers to himself, for donation. There's Vernon Law again, so if I, decide to donate a few bucks Mr. Law's way, maybe I'll get that one signed. Then there's a lot of guys that are deceased in here, but got some Hall of Famers, Rabbit Marinville, Pie Trainer, Archie Vaughn. But the cool thing that I found about these sets is they made sets for almost every team. So if you like the Cubs, if you like the Cardinals, if you like the Texas Rangers, I think, Cleveland Indians, odds are they have a Hero Deck set. Now, if you don't care about autographs and you just want to hang out with the buds and play some poker, what better cards to do it than with some of your favorite team, the Cubs or whatever. So, if you can find these, I've seen them in a couple places. I've stayed at a couple hotels on business, and like in the St. Louis area, I think at the airport, like in the gift shop, I've actually seen these, but they're, as you know, like everything else in the airport, pretty expensive. So, I know this video is a little bit longer, and I only showed you three through the mail responses, but I'm very proud of some of the things in my 1960s Pirates collection, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and inspired you maybe to go out there and get some autographs from some of these guys before it's too late to be able to get them, because guys that played in 1960 or down, that means they're probably the age of your grandparents at this point, or maybe even your great-grandparents. So, very fortunate to add these guys to the collection. That was almost over 60 years ago that they won the World Series. So, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.